Alright, so back on the Belvedere, as I mentioned in my previous video, and if you haven't seen that, maybe check out some of my stuff, I appreciate that. Um, we're dealing with battery tray rust today, so what we're going to do is we're gonna leave that in place just for now for just making template, just trying to get everything sized up, and I've got this piece of sheet metal here, but I've cleaned up the portion I'm going to use. It's only about this is where having a tape measure comes in handy. And using it one-handed is not very handy. But the top's about 2 inches, and it's about 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch that it's going to curve over that I'm going to cut out here. I'm hoping to keep the top fairly flat. I don't really want to deal with this curve here, but we'll see what we get into by the time we get it cut out and see how solid the metal around it is. And this is a really, really common area for, I know all Mopars really have it, but a lot of other cars I'm sure have it too, where a battery tray used to sit and used to collect a bunch of junk there and moisture and all kinds of stuff, and it just rots away. So we're going to be using a various amount of tools, but the big one is going to be using this kind of small vise, as well as body hammer, tape measures, and cut off wheels and other stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and cut about, after looking at that, about probably 3.5 inches or so here off of the end. And we're going to see where that gets us, set that in place, and I might try to see if I can kind of contour it by hand. Otherwise, I can use the vise and the body hammer to help contour it as well. So we're going to get this cut and get that over set in place. So I got the main piece taken out, and of course I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit, started trying to work it when I wasn't filming. So that's pretty typical. So what I'm doing here, and what you'll notice, is I started the bend like this, and I'm just pushing it by hand, and it's nice to wear gloves so you don't cut yourself, but I don't have any handy right now. You'll notice that the main bend here will start to go the way you want it to, but the edges will start to kind of lift up. So when you bend, you're going to have to just move. So move it over, give it a little more, go to the other side, give it a little more. And this is just the beginning. This is just the rough, kind of, I guess you could call it a rough draft. Obviously, we're not even close to being completely right, but it's starting to take shape a little bit, and obviously on this end, I'm going to have to trim a lot off. But I'm actually pretty impressed. It's fitting pretty good, and obviously I need to work on the bend. But I'm going to do a little bit more work on the vise, work on the bend a little bit, and I'll bring you guys back here in just a minute. All right, so I moved my vise over to my table here. It's a mess, so I have to clean that up later. So I've got the curvature where it's sitting on there pretty nice, but the problem is when you go over here and look, you've got this lip here from the access panel here. So it's hitting there. I need to do something about that. So I need to trim a lot off, and this is just going over here. I've got kind of a rough line that I scribed. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but I got a line here, and that's just kind of a guideline to go off of. And realistically, especially towards the front of the panel, or not front, it's actually the rear of the car, where that kind of cutout panel is in this area. I'll have to trim a lot off of that. So that's not even really going to fix the problem, but this will get us a lot closer. So we're going to get this cut, and we're going to see if we can kind of set that on in place and see how we're doing for the overall bend that I have going on here. And I think this might be a little bit too sharp, so I'll have to get that in place, and I at least from here forward, at least we'll be able to kind of fit on there and get a good idea. But we're gonna have to do some work here. So we're gonna have to see how that fits. But I'm gonna get going on getting this cut, and I'll get that fitted, and I'll bring you guys over there in just a minute. All right, so I did jump an extra step ahead. I had this oversetting in place, and I took my grinder and notched it so that way it actually fits pretty good. And I did have to adjust the bend a little bit. I just had to open it up a little bit, meaning, you know, it was more of a 90 now, and now it's probably 120 or so. If I had to just eyeball it and guess. So the overall fitment of the metal right there is really good. I think I can get away. I might need to trim this a little bit. I need to see where my hole ends. I might trim this end off just a little bit, and I do have some slight fitment on the end where that corner is a little bit sharp, and where on the body it kind of curves back. So I'm probably going to trim a little bit of that off. And I will have to also do the same thing on this end, but you can see the rust is not all the way to that edge, which you always want to make your panels a little bit oversized, because if you make them too small, it's a lot more difficult to deal with than if you just do it the way that it's supposed to, in my opinion, at least, where you make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to be getting this piece back over to my vise, and just recap of what I did. When I was opening up this bend, I just laid it flat on the bend, or on the kind of anvil table, and just kind of tapped it until it opened up enough. And I kept going back and forth, test fitting. Anybody who says they make a panel and test fit it once and say they're done is lying. That, or they're just some sort of wizard. You don't test fit a panel once and have it done. You're going to do it many times. So for cutting it out, I use my cutoff wheel. And then for this grinding and notching, and then I could trim off with the cutoff wheel, but I'll probably just grind off the edge with this, with my bigger grinder, with my, I think it's, I forget what kind of disc. Yeah, it's a Walter Flex Cut. That's what it's called. And I got recommended those by watching a pretty well-known fabricating, I guess I'd consider it fabricating, channel, Fitzy's Fabrications. And there goes my piece I just made. If you guys really want some better tips and real kind of step-by-step, definitely go to his channel if you've been living under a rock long enough that you don't know his channel. But I'm going to have to clean up the inside a little bit, and I will be getting this ready for final fitment and adjustments, and I will bring you guys back once I get pretty much everything dialed in. All right, quick little public service announcement. Tools are dangerous sometimes. I don't know why, but this cracked and the actual piece came separated from the center. So that was fun. Glad nobody got hurt. Yeah, just a reminder. Watch out for flying parts off of your tools. That's not good. All right, so fast forwarding. I set the panel in place. It's mostly fitted. I got to work on this corner a little bit on the panel here, which now I have to get all that paint off. You know, this was a little bit better idea in my head than in reality, but gives you a good line to work from. You will need to expand from that line, because once the panel's actually in place, it'll take up a little more space. But that gives me a good idea. I can cut inside of the line and not worry about it. Also, I don't recommend trying to spray paint in 40 degrees. It doesn't really work that well. So, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get the cutoff wheel and cut a good portion of that out, and hopefully I can get this cleaned off and get it back to where I can weld on it again. So I'll be back in just a minute. Well, we have our piece trimmed and cut and trim and cut and trim and cut about 50 times before you get something like this. And there's a couple of gaps that are a little bit bigger than I'd like. Mainly on this side, there's a little bit of a difference in height just due to the way that it starts to curve this way. And once I'm going to tack weld all around here. And then this was a little bit of a problem too. I'm going to have to kind of, oh, I messed it up. But I'm going to have to kind of build that up with weld and hopefully get it looking at least close to factory. And the other nice thing about this is the battery tray is going to be right here. So you're not going to see any of this. But with that being said, a lot of people say that, you'll never see that part, so it doesn't matter. Well, I really couldn't disagree a whole lot more. There are times and places where the quality finish work doesn't matter quite as much, this being a spot that someone could claim that. But in my opinion, if you can do high quality work and if you can do a good job, then do a good job. It just all depends on what you're doing, what you're working on, and the location of the piece, obviously. But just as a general rule, do the best quality work that you can. It's just better that way, and you make yourself look better. But I'm going to go through, dress up this area, get it bare metal ready for welding, and I'm going to get this tacked in place, and I'll get you guys back here once I'm working on that. Well, got the old welder out, and I forgot kind of what a piece of crap it is. That's something that we're going to be getting this year. We'll be investing in a little bit better welder. But things are all right. There's a couple of gaps, and then there's a couple spots that are a little bit thin that I'm having a hard time. Like over here is blowing a little bit of holes there, so I'm going to have to reevaluate there. I might have to add a little patch, but that kind of concludes what we're trying to kind of get done. I'm going to go through, finish welding out, and do all that off camera. Next time you see that, that'll probably be all dressed up, or maybe we'll cover doing a little bit of body work on it. It just depends on what you guys want to see. So, and before anybody says it, yes, I know that I need to drill a couple holes in there for the battery tray to go back with correct mounting positions. So yes, I'm aware of that, because I'm sure somebody would say that. But I'm gonna pretty much cut it there. It was a lot of jumping around, a lot of trial and error, and this video is gonna be 15-20 minutes long or whatever the case, but this took about an hour and a half maybe. So it definitely does go to show that things don't just magically happen. It does take a lot of time. So I'm gonna have to address the little fact that there's a little break there and a little missing little chunk, but I could do all that off camera. You guys get the idea and get the process. So yeah. So I hope you guys got something out of that. Definitely something a little bit different. I don't show welding, fabricating kind of stuff on the channel that much, and I probably won't show a ton of like small patches and stuff like that. But if we work on other cars and hang quarters, do stuff like that, I'll definitely show more stuff like that. But it was kind of good to pick up the welding helmet again, because I haven't done it in a while. And there's definitely plenty of things that I have to learn, and I'm not a welding and fabricating channel. That's not the purpose of the channel or 100% of what we do, but it is a portion of it. So definitely let me know what you guys think. And one other thing I just want to make mention of is I've known about this spot that needs to be welded for a long time. And once I started getting focused back on this car again, I've been waiting to do that patch for About 4 or 5 days, because I didn't know how to do it. I couldn't come up with in my brain how to make it exactly work, and I've got it pretty close and I've got it pretty good, and I think it'll turn out good. But it just goes to show, and I'll say this because it's what I needed to do, needed to do. Just get out in the shop, start looking at it, start bending metal. If it takes you a few different tries on a few different patches, cool. You just gotta start in order to get it done. And I feel great now that I started working on it. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Definitely consider liking, subscribing, all that stuff. I appreciate everybody that does that. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one.